Hey, bud, what's your problem? Bet you that caught you off guard, huh? Well, welcome to There's a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell. I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I am the owner of Maxwell's fitness programs, and I've been in business since 1994. The purpose of this podcast is to solve your problems, or at least maybe help you solve your problems. Before I get into explaining all of this, let me thank Jonathan and Lynn Gilden of the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They are committed to providing the highest level of customer service, and they have the sales and the reviews to back that up. And you know what? That's the absolute truth. I mean, they're true professionals. If you are not paying attention to the real estate market, well, let me tell you something. Things have really slowed down. So you're going to need a professional to help you navigate these waters. Give them a shout, 386-451-2412. So, my friends, my listeners, my clients, what is your problem? We all have to have one, right? And before we can set goals, we have to really know what the problem is. Well, let me tell you a little bit of a national epidemic and a worldwide epidemic. And no, it's not obesity. Yes, it is, but that's not what this is about. But what this is about definitely contributes to the obesity epidemic, and that is not enough people are exercising on a regular basis. There's different statistics out there. The bleakest one I've heard is only 7% are on a sustainable exercise program. Now, that seems almost impossible. 7%, so that's pretty darn low. But even the most optimistic one is pretty darn bleak, and that is 20% of our population, United States, is on a sustainable exercise program, meaning they're not doing it long enough to get the benefits. And why? Well, the key word I believe there is sustainable, because I do think there's a lot of start and stops. How much? I don't know. Probably, if I were to guess, over 50% of the population starts some form of an exercise program, but only 20%, with our best estimates, start it and maintain it to the point where they're getting benefits. Another little bleak statistic that is along the lines of obesity, only 5% of the people that lose the weight keep it off for a year. So 95% of the people put the weight back on. So, again, hey bud, what's your problem? I hope you know the movie reference. I'm not going to say it because you're just going to have to know that, right? Hopefully you know it. If you're a Gen X or a Boomer, you know it. And if you're younger than that, you better watch it because it's a great classic movie. Anyway, how do we set goals if we don't know really what the problem is? So one of my theories is that the reason why people aren't sticking to a regular exercise program is because they're having a hard time knowing or identifying what their true problem is. They're not really getting deep enough to figure it out why it matters for them. There's all these different things we've done in the wellness industry, and I've talked about it before, and there's benefit to it, but things like SMART goals, which stands for specific, measurable, realistic, SMART, S-M-A-R, timely. So, that's great. I really probably should have written that down before, but you know what? That's how you know this thing is live and candid, right? So anyway, SMART goals, a nice little acronym for that. You can tell I haven't used it in a while. And there's probably a reason why. Because it's like you can sit down and come up with all the reasons why. You can fill in all those little things. Well, is it specific? Yeah. Is it measurable? Yeah. For example, weight loss is measurable. We can do that, but what really matters to you? And I think that's really important. I'm going to tell you a couple stories here. When I was teaching sports medicine, I would have the students come around, day one or day two, whatever, the thing we all hated when we were in college, well, yeah, I turned around and did it to them. But so the program was like 8 core classes, and then they got their general education, and then they were supposed to, go out and find out what they wanted to do in the sports medicine world, which is a wide open industry there. And there was a lot of different jobs and opportunities for them. But, the idea was to kind of figure out where they wanted to go so I can help them individually. So on day one, I'd say, so, why are you getting into this? And I would always do that. And, some days you got better answer than others. And when I say better, I mean that like it's more authentic, or things I can nod along with them and go, oh, that's great. So obviously you're going to have better stories and lesser stories. I mean, that's just the case. But this one really stood out. And it was probably somewhere around the middle of one of my years there. So I think I was doing this 11, 12 years, so maybe around year 6. So it went back a ways. And I called on the student, and he said, well, I was over fighting one of the wars, and I don't remember if it was Iraq or Afghanistan, but it was during that era. And he said, he had allowed himself to get out of shape. And, of course, I mean, I couldn't even imagine what he and those soldiers went through. So obviously no judgment here. And but he was not happy with it. And he recently had a son, like just before he came into the program. He had, been discharged. I think it was the Marines. Marines are Army, definitely infantry. And, he just had his boy. And, he looks at me and he says, I need to be around to raise him. I need to be around to stay healthy for him. So my reason for getting into this and my goal is to be healthy so I can be a good dad. I mean, that's kind of like a mic drop, I mean, so many times, especially in this case, and it's a little different because the students were more or less talking about their occupational goals. But, I mean, oftentimes it would be, well, I want to, I believe in this and I want to make a living, and all that's great, but when you really cut to the core like that, and somebody says like, they really want to be the best versions of themselves, the best dad they can be, and they feel like if they don't really start to get on it now, they're not going to be around to raise their son. I mean, that's pretty inspirational, So like that was his problem, right? But it's not really, well, it is a problem, but a problem isn't a bad thing when you actively seek a solution. It kind of kicks us in the butt and it gets us going. But that was his problem. His problem was he didn't feel like he was healthy. He had gotten overweight. Probably, I'm guessing the lab work wasn't overly great. And other issues that go along with putting on weight. He had those things. That was his problem. His solution was to go to school because, number one, he had some money he could use for college through, I guess it was the GI Bill and some student loans. So he wanted to really just learn how to do it for himself. He wasn't overly interested in working in it, although I'm sure that would have been a decent perk. He really wanted to learn the right way to do it, and he figured college might be the way. So that was his problem. And I think so often when we use random statements that we think we're supposed to say, because look, I think everybody really believes they should be taking care of their health and fitness. I mean, I think it's a rarity today. I know people joke about it and say, oh, there's that guy who just doesn't care. I don't know that that's really true. I think a lot of people use defense mechanisms that they don't care. They think there's nothing they can do about it. They grew up in an environment where health and fitness isn't a priority, and, they just following along in what they've seen. I mean, so much of who we are is our environment, regardless of what we've been led to believe. I mean, my opinion is our environment is far more impactful than our genetics. And, you can fight me on that all you want to. And so a lot of people believe that maybe they can't change because they didn't see their parents change, but I do think nowadays it's very different than 30 or 40 years ago. Like nowadays, people know, like they get out into the real world, they get into school, and they start getting their mind open to other ways. So I think a lot of people go, yeah, I really should work out. I should be fit. I should be healthy, all these things. And there's nothing wrong with having that belief. The problem is what does that really mean to them? Even when people call me at the gym, if they have a very vague description of what they're looking for, I don't really have many solutions for them. I think the listeners of this show know because I've said it before, and if you're just tuning in, I'll say it again. Like, I'm busy now and I really can't take clients. I have a waiting list. So when I say that when people call the gym, I typically can't really work anybody in anyway. But I can tell you what, when they're vague like that, I definitely have no interest because there is nothing I can really do because they don't even know what they want. They'll say, well, shouldn't we all work out, right? And I'll go, well, I don't know, I guess, right? In other words, they're looking for somebody to sell them on why they should be working out. They kind of think they should, and they want that person to just close the deal and tell them how important it is. And I'm not going to do that because that doesn't work. Like, you have to know what your problem is. So when you say, well, I want to lose weight. And if I say, okay, why? Well, shouldn't we all lose weight? I don't know. Should we? I'm going to throw it back at them. Again, they want somebody to close the deal. Well, don't we all want to look better? Don't we all want muscles? And I'll say, well, I do, but that doesn't mean you do. And by the way, why do you? And why do you think people need them? So I think the root of our issue, of our lack of adherence to an exercise program, is coming down to people don't really know what the hell they want. They don't really know what their problem is, And it could be just in our society, we are so distracted with social media and BS news channels and all that crap that people watch all the time. And it's like people can't stand to be by themselves and simply be alone with their thoughts. Or like even in the old days, and no, I'm not, the get off my lawn guy, or you know what, maybe I am. Who cares? Get off my lawn. So, anyway, but we would at least listen to music, right? And allow our brain to drift. If you lived in Central Florida and you're a Gen Xer like me, you grew up listening to WDIZ rock radio, right? It's like you kept it on that station and you didn't turn it. And songs came on you absolutely loved, and songs came on that you probably were indifferent to, and songs came on that you hated, but you didn't change the channel. And that allowed a lot of time to think and be alone with your thoughts and really figure out.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, quick question for you. Are you someone who wants to be fit, healthy, and happy? And what if I told you you could get your dream body by simply just listening to a podcast? I'm Josh.
And I'm KG, and we're the hosts of the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast.
Listen, we get it. Fitness isn't easy. Carbs, no carbs.
Just stop, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's why we made this podcast. We get straight to the facts so you can become your best you.
So the way to check us out is click the link in the show notes or search Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. We'll see you soon.
What you want and what you need and what you like and what you don't like and what you need to change. But now, like, what we do to change is we just go, oh, I don't like that station. Let me change my playlist. And we just change things. So I think part of it is people really struggle with being alone, being quiet. And so they really don't always know what they really want. Sorry if you expected to tune in and hear the diet of the week, because, that's not really what my podcast is about. I want to be more thought-provoking and get to the real deeper issues so people can actually bring about change in their life. Another little story I'm going to pass on. It was told to me, and it was told to me by a trainer who He actually was telling my sports medicine class, actually, and I was just listening to him, and it's the first time I heard him tell the story. And he's an old friend, a good guy, and we get along, and he's still in business, thank goodness, because we need good people in the fitness industry helping people. And he was talking about kind of the same thing. He was interviewing a potential client who was a female, and, same thing. She was going through her old, well, shouldn't we this, shouldn't we that? Well, I think I want this, I think I want that. I want to lose weight, I want to look better, I want more tone. And he'd had a lot of experience at this time and knew that if he couldn't get to the real issues, he wouldn't be able to help her thoroughly, and she couldn't help herself. So he kept pressing her every time she'd say, well, I want to look better, I want this. And he'd say, well, what does that look like to you? And why do you want to look better? Well, don't we all need to look better? Oh, I don't know about that. Some people might care less. So he kept pushing her and kind of like got under her skin a little bit. And she finally said, look, I want to look better because I used to have a vibrant sex life with my husband, and now I'm really ashamed to get naked in front of him because, I'm afraid he's not going to like what he sees, and so now I've become inhibited and blah, 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 blah. And, he was like, okay, we're getting somewhere now. And by the way, for all you, politically correct people that think it was an inappropriate conversation, I mean, grow up. It's not. This guy was an older trainer at the time, and obviously the person talking to him felt comfortable with that and could care less. And those are like the kind of conversations that need to happen between professionals sometimes, and there wasn't anything that shouldn't have been said in there. It was simply, him getting to the why and her explaining the why. So from that day on, he knew her well, and when she wanted to quit, or when not like quit working out, but when she wanted to quit during sets, or when she was, maybe being a little inconsistent, he would pull her aside and he'd say, hey, you remember your original goal? You wanted to feel more attractive to your husband and all that, is that still the case? Well, yes. Okay, so do you really want to quit? Well, no, of course not. So he was able to get to her real issues, which I think is so important for everybody. So what is your problem? I mean, don't say, I think I should be stronger. I mean, of course, we probably all should be stronger, or at least strong enough. But like, why does it impact you? And, we have a really, really good, strong clientele base right now. And I don't mean numbers wise. Numbers wise, it's been good for a very, very long time. But I think I've done a better job over the last 3, 4, 5 years, probably because I've been doing this a long time, and I don't want to like not enjoy my work. And so I screen people really well. So that might be why we have such a strong clientele, because as I sit here and I gaze down at my appointment book here, I know the whys of all these people. And like I was able to get them to really pinpoint what the problem is. So I would have somebody call. We get referrals from physicians, and they'd say, well, my doctor really believes that I can benefit from strength training because I can't do the things I used to do. And I said, okay, like what? And they said, well, I hate the fact that when I go to the grocery store, I have to ask the clerk to come over and grab that dog food bag off the bottom of the shelf. I don't want to feel like I have to rely on people for stuff I used to be able to do. And, I just want to be able to lift that bag and put it onto my cart. And I think, wow, okay. So they're telling me the problem, and they're telling me the problem is they can't do what they used to do, and they don't like that. And I can look at my book and see that almost, I mean, everybody, I just peek down now, and I don't see anybody that I don't know their true why. And once people are able to identify what the problem is, and let's just go back to the most common one, being overweight, needing to lose weight. I'm saying, so what? And you can get them to the point where they say, well, I don't want to die earlier, then maybe I don't have to, and I don't want to be disabled, and I don't want this, I mean, I'm overweight, my glucose is high, so I'm pre-diabetic. my LDL cholesterol is high, and my physician tells me my risks of having a heart attack are a lot greater now than they were just 2 years ago, and it's because of me being overweight. Okay, so does that scare you? Yeah, why? Why does that scare you? Well, I don't want to die. It's like, okay, so, now we know. I mean, when some people say, I don't want to be overweight, I don't know if they really feel that way. I mean, we have kind of a weird society with that, right? I mean, I don't mean to pick on the men here, but like a lot of being overweight is about like being attractive. That's the society we live in now. So it's like that's not considered overly attractive if somebody's obese, right? But a lot of men, as you ladies are probably listening to this, know exactly what I'm talking about. The guys are like, well, it doesn't matter so much. They only like my bank account or whatever, and unfortunately, a lot of people do think that way. And a lot of men have a much greater propensity towards heart disease than women do for multiple reasons. So there's some genetic factors, but also they don't go to the physicians as much, they don't do their blood work as much, and they don't exercise as much, and they don't eat a healthy diet as much. And by the way, these aren't my opinions, these are stone cold statistics on this. So sadly, I think some of that is because of that, primal attractive factor. But you know what, men, ladies, everybody, being overweight does create problems that go well beyond that, but you have to figure out what that is. There's a great saying I like when it comes along those lines, and it is that there is no wealth without health. So if we're thinking, well, I don't really need that per se, the medications can kind of keep me alive longer, and, people only like my bank account. I know how shallow that sounds, but this podcast is to keep it real because I hear how people think and talk, and this is kind of the common knowledge. But I can tell you right now, there is no wealth without health. There just absolutely isn't. So if you're going along thinking this isn't that important because you're making a good living, it's just not true. I mean, you want to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labors. But again, here I go preaching, telling you what I think you want. And I just told you we shouldn't do that. So I'm going to revert back to, the important part of this message is, what is your problem? Why does this matter to you? Like, what is your problem right now in regards to health and fitness? Do you feel like you're in pain a lot? That's a problem that you can fix. Do you feel like you're being overweight or obese is causing health or social problems? That is a problem that you can fix. Are you injured, or are you injured often so you can't do the things you want to do, such as run or play golf or go to CrossFit or any of those things? That is a problem. And when you have a problem, you can create a goal. And guess what the goal is? It's the opposite of that problem. So that's your assignment. Think about what your problem is. And if you don't know how to fix it, that's okay. That's a mutual problem, meaning ask for help. All right? So now let me thank Overhead Door of Daytona Beach. Jeff and Zach Hawk are the owners. They're true professionals. I've known them for a very long time. I've known Jeff, the Papa Hawk, longer than Zach has been alive. So I've known these people a long time. Totally trust them and their abilities to take care of you. If you need a new garage door, if you need service, give them a shout at overheaddordaytona.com. Please share these episodes. Please subscribe if you haven't. Please download and rate the show. Give it a 5 if you would, even though I said some things you may not like. All right, until next time, be Max Fit and be Maxwell.